Hello, and a very warm welcome to this edition of Passions. And today I'm joined by Becky Palmer. And Becky Palmer is going to talk to us about her passion, which is, well, we'll find out in a minute. Hello, I'm Phil Croshaw, and welcome to Passions. Okay, so a very warm welcome then to Passions. So as I tantalizingly said at the start of the show, I'm delighted to be joined today for this episode by Becky Palmer. And Becky's passion is?
It's colic and babies.
Colic and babies. Now, listen, the one thing you know about this show by now, if you've watched any of the content so far, is that I want diversity in the content. So this demonstrates without any shadow of a doubt that I've got diversity. We've got diversity in the content. So tell us what you mean then, Becky, about passion for colic and babies.
So I'm a colic expert, and what I like to do is I like to help families figure out their root cause of their baby's distress. So colic is just a sweeping diagnosis for a crying baby, and it causes a lot of confusion and overwhelm for parents. So I'm really passionate about helping parents through this really difficult time of parenthood and getting a happy baby at the end of it.
So obviously the next question that has to be asked is, where did this passion for this subject come from?
Well, unfortunately, it is personal experience. My firstborn 9 years ago now, he was really colicky, and I just felt like I wasn't listened to by health professionals. I was totally left on my own to deal with this crying baby. And you know, when you have a baby, all you need is a flipping manual. Well, you just don't get that manual. So it's personal experience that I thought I don't want anybody else to feel like I did. So a few years later, I qualified into colic and massage and yoga, and I was well on my way to, helping other families.
So do you think how much of it then is about colic? It's interesting that you've picked colic as the topic in a way, because there's so many ways that you could help mothers of new babies. Is it particularly because you went through hell on earth in your experience with the colic problem and you didn't really know where to turn to?
Yeah, absolutely. It is because I just felt so helpless and so powerless as a mum. And I know my husband did as well, because he suffered just as much as I did. And we just felt like we were just, hanging around outside with no lights on. It was just absolutely awful. So all I wanted to do is be able to say, right, Colic can do one.
Said in a very nice Yorkshire accent.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, that's absolutely brilliant. Okay, so you got the topic, but here's an interesting one. So you were interested in the topic, you had good reason to be doing it, but then it sounds as if you made some sacrifices in spending the time and the effort and the energy to actually go and get what in effect, I suppose, is qualifications in it. Is that what happened?
Yeah, absolutely. So as being a baby massage and yoga teacher, which was the first step for me into kind of this world of parenthood, I've kind of kept seeing Colic again and again and again, and how helpless these parents were. So I thought I need to look further into this. So yeah, I took further qualifications in colic, reflux, and allergies, and that then led on to more qualifications into the infant gut microbiome, which is fascinating, and then tongue tie and infant feeding as well, and all of it together has helped me kind of become the expert in colic.
And what's also interesting about your story is that you're actually a solicitor, aren't you, by training?
I am, yeah, absolutely. Pre-children, I was a city solicitor doing court work, so I was a civil litigation solicitor, and it was just crazy that as soon as my children arrived, my priorities changed. I knew I needed to work with mums and babies.
You see, I think and the reason I asked you about that is because, I talk about this channel of being about the 3 I's: ideas, inspiration, and insight. And what that shows, without any shadow of a doubt, because in my work as a business consultant and coach and so on, I come across so many people who want to make a change but don't make the change. So you're a living example of somebody who, I don't mean this in a funny way, but an everyday person, obviously a very nice everyday person, but you actually obviously took the decision to take the action versus talking about it. And then you see what I'm saying? Because you must have come across it yourself. A lot of people talk about it and they will say, oh, it's all right for Becky. Yeah, but Becky actually made the decisions and made the sacrifices and didn't just talk about it and reached out.
I did, yeah. I mean, it was a lot of qualifications, so a lot of studying. I was a mum, and I was juggling my son, and my daughter had arrived at that time as well. So I was kind of, using her as a guinea pig almost as well for a lot of my qualifications. And it was a case that I just got my head down, did it because I wanted to do it.
Yeah, no, I just think that's fantastic. And as I said, absolute living proof of it. So when you started to get involved in it in the early days, or when you started to go on that journey, was it your intention to find a way of monetizing it and making a living from it? Was that always the intention? Or was it the fact that it was just so interesting to you that the financial side didn't matter?
Yeah, no, what I really want to do is make a difference. Pay the bills would be nice, as always. But yeah, I just really, the whole, you talk about your why, don't you? And my why is to make a difference. I want to be able to turn around to parents and say, I can help you and take that pain away. That's all I really wanted to do. So the fact that I can actually make a career out of it is just brilliant.
And you mentioned a second ago as well about the dads, and it was almost like the dads get forgotten maybe a little bit. What have you seen in that, in terms of the way that maybe dads get forgotten when they're going through the agony at the same time?
Oh, they do. In fact, one dad actually reached out to me on Instagram and said, we always talk about mums, but what about dads? Because I'm suffering too. And I was like, you're right. You're absolutely right. So then I sent out a nice little Instagram post to say how great dads are. And also, because I host a podcast, I'm now looking at how colic affects dads as well. And I've just actually, like 2 minutes before I chatted to you, Phil, was that I got a message from one mum saying my partner would really like to speak to you because he's got PTSD from the baby having colic throughout lockdown.
Blimey.
And I was like, if you would love to share your story, I would love to hear it.
Wow. And that's the sort of thing that will get picked up by the mainstream media, which we'll talk about again in a second. I'll tell you what I've not asked you, which I probably should have asked you at the start, really, is what exactly is colic?
So it's a sleeping diagnosis given to a baby who is just excessively crying. And what I do is figure out what the trigger is. So it's caused by immature digestive system. So you usually think it's to do with wind. So that is one of the causes. It can also cause by allergies, reflux, fourth trimester period, which is that transition from womb to world. So the first 3 months of baby's life. Immature gut bacteria also has a big role to it. And I've just discovered, this is very exciting for me anyway, that palm oil in infant formula can also cause colic and constipation in babies. Blimey. And I get really giddy about that because that's the sort of stuff that I'm like, I think is amazing. If I can find another reason why a baby is crying, then that's another thing that we can look at and sort.
Yeah, and I mean the pain. It's, as I think I said to you once before, that it's quite a few years since my kids were that age. But I guess that the anguish and the stress levels for people who experience it with young children must be absolutely agony.
Oh, it is. It's awful. Not only are you having to deal with sleepless nights, you're having to deal with a baby who's crying at you. So it affects 1 in 5 babies get colic, and 60% of mums who have got PND have a colicky baby. So there is a big link between maternal mental health and colic. So you've got to think, if colic is causing so many mums to have postnatal depression, then something has to be done about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I totally get it. And it reminds me a little bit, I suppose, in a way of toothache, which sounds strange, but this is obviously as a bloke talking, obviously. But I know that, if anybody's experienced toothache, really bad toothache, you'll basically pretty much, if somebody's saying, I'll get rid of your toothache if you give me £1,000, it's like, right, where's my card? Where's my wallet? Because it's so painful. And I guess this is a similar kind of thing in a sense, in that level of pain. And of course, I guess you love and adore your baby, but I guess when it gets bad, it starts to encroach on all sorts of other areas of domestic life. I'm thinking about lack of sleep, or even maybe, dare I say it, maybe even violence, some kind of violence in the home if it goes too far.
Oh, it could have serious repercussions. So you've got to think as well, if you're driving about and you've had no sleep and you've got a baby who's screaming in the back, then that is, distracting you. It's very distracting. For a mum, their baby cry is so much louder to a mum than it is to anybody else. And that's, their whole maternal instinct. So you can't ignore your baby. So if you've got a screaming colicky baby in the back of your car, because like my daughter used to hate the car seat. She suffered with reflux, so the positioning of the car seat was really not good for her. And she's screaming in the back. It's like having your radio on full blast, very distracting. So it can lead to all sorts of really horrible situations.
Yeah, I can only relate it to having the radio in the car full blast playing Status Quo or Boney M, because I hate those bands. Now, at this point, is probably where people start getting really upset and start sending me horrible emails. But I'm just being honest. I'm true to myself. I'm self-aware. Okay, well, that's great. So you talked about that, obviously. I'd just like to explore a little bit now about the business side, because as you know, and I said at the start, the channels are also about inspiring people as to how they can turn their passions into careers and into money-making opportunities. Because as everybody kind of knows, I guess, that if you can make a good living out of your passion, then you'll kind of not work another day in your life, as they say. So talk to me a little bit about that, because obviously you've started to develop the whole thing now. What sort of things have you done in order to start to monetize it? What sort of things are you able to offer under what you do?
So I do one-to-one consultations with families who are struggling with colic. So that tends to be the mainstream of my income. I also have a podcast. So I have sponsorship for the podcast. I also send out a lot of articles so kind of around colic as well, so around the subject. So it's kind of the writing is something that I absolutely love doing. So yeah, that's one of the big things for me. So writing about colic, talking about colic, and eventually helping parents with their colicky baby is how I've made a career out of it.
So are you very confident when you're on camera like we are now, or when you're doing Instagram videos, or you're doing podcasts? And are you very confident naturally, or do you have to pretend or act that you are?
I can talk for England, so that helps. And I can talk
You're a
about
northerner,
anything.
of course you can.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not. It's definitely something I've had to get used to. I've had to get used to being on camera, and I've had to also kind of be confident in my writing ability as well. To be sending it to people is, it's a big leap of faith in yourself. So I've had to develop this confidence over time. I mean, I've always been a chatty, laid-back person, but yeah, which has obviously helped. But yeah, kind of being on camera and listening back to myself is something I still can't do.
Yeah, that's very, very common. I've talked quite a lot, and I do it a lot in my business, about the 5 phobias. And I know I've talked to you about them in the past. There's got scopophobia, which is fear of being on camera. You got phonophobia, which is fear of hearing your own voice. You got social phobia, which is fear of being judged by everybody. You've got glossophobia, which is fear of public speaking. And then you've got technophobia, which is the fear of pressing the wrong buttons and using the technology. So one way or another, there's a lot of phobias out to get you. So, yeah. And what I always say to people, and you've kind of taken heed on this yourself, is just, it's almost like the cliches of feel the fear and do it anyway, because you have to be seen and heard if you're going to have a business.
Yeah,
it's part and parcel, isn't it?
You do. You need the visibility. You could be the best person in the world doing what you love, but if nobody knows about you, then what's the point?
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. And then finally, then, is it fair to say that because this is a passion, does it motivate you and keep you going a little bit more when you're a bit weary, or you're tired, or you've got problems with the kids, or problem with your husband, or both? Does it tend to keep you going when you're feeling a bit weary because you've got a passion for the subject? Hmm.
Yeah, this what the saying is: if you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life. And it is true. I do love what I do. I love picking up the phone to parents. If my phone pings to say that someone's booked in a call with me, I think great. And it's not. I don't think, oh great, there's 100 quid in the bank. It's it's a great. I'm going to be able to help somebody today. I wake up every morning and think, how will I help someone today? How am I going to do it today? And I think if you can feel like that every morning that you get up, then what's not to love.
Well, exactly. And I think that the most wonderful example of a passion is where it's a passion that helps other people. And I think that's always going to be top of the credibility list, if you like, because whilst you're obviously going to have to do it for yourself to a point, you're actually doing it for other people. So you're taking your passion and you're doing it for other people. And, I think that's probably the best example of a passion that anybody could possibly have. Okay, so how do people find out more about you, Becky? How do people find out more about Colic and Colic SOS? Have you got social media? Have you got a website and such like?
Oh, I have everything, Phil. So we have the website, which is colicsos.com. So you'll find all my articles on there as well. So there's a wealth of blogs. So you get all of my little knowledge in that website. There is also kind of the details of my care packages as well for parents. I have Facebook, which is Colic SOS. Also on Instagram, you'll find me on LinkedIn under Rebecca Palmer. And I have the podcast as well, which is called the Colic Diaries by Colic SOS. And you can get that on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, and various other ones. So you can hear me, see me.
So basically, if people can't find you and they want to, they may be a bit of a dimwit. Is that what
They should be able to find? Yeah. You should definitely be able to find me somewhere.
Fantastic. Right. Okay, Becky, that's absolutely wonderful. Thanks for joining me today on Passions. If there's not some inspiration, insight, and ideas from that, then I don't know what is. And you never know, maybe one day somebody will contact you and say, I watched your interview and on the back of that, I did X, Y, Z, and I'm a lot happier as a result. Or even I had a colicky baby, I got in touch with you, and life changed a lot as a result of that experience. So, making a difference on every level. So thanks for joining me today, and very best wishes and very best luck with what you're doing and with your passion.
Thank you. And thank you for having me on.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Wave. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.